Hello. Well, I am conflicted as to whether to greet or not, because I noticed lack of responsiveness when it comes to greetings. So I do not know whether to chant the comrade kind of greeting or to go formal in the manner that we do it corporately, or most probably for those of us who are in the church setup to most probably do the believer's kind of a wave. So I would most probably try the three and see if there could be response of any kind. Naomba wa Kristo tusalimiane hewani. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Nijibu kama unanisikia hewani. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Hallelujah. Then let me now try another one. Good morning, everyone. Comrades, power. Comrades, rear. Inaonekana kuna more comrades this side than that side. Wasakatonge. Niliona kuna wasakatonge wengi upande huu. Wasakatonge, rear. Thank you. Could I most probably ask, what is the entry procedure into becoming a member of Wasakatonge? Somebody said I must have to be jobless first. Well, I think even when I still have the little responsibility that God has privileged me to have, I am still a Msakatonge. Isn't it? And I noticed that Wasakatonge is basically made up of student leaders and former student leaders. Well, I think I am an emeritus. And proudly, my institution, one of the institutions that I was privileged to pass through, is represented here today. I was privileged to pass through 2 institutions in the country. I was only in one institution for 6 months. That was the University of Nairobi. I was one of the casualties of a generation that really fought the government, led by a gentleman known as Karl Marx. I don't know how many people remember that. And I was only a first year, and the handboy for a gentleman who is apparently also my colleague today is known as Moses Oburu, who happened to have been the longest serving chair of the University of Nairobi Students Organization. I don't know how many of you have the information about Moses Oburu. Those of us who come from the greatest university in, could I say the greatest university in Africa? In the world. So go find out who Oburu was in the team of Karl Marx. So I wasn't such a politician per se, but only by privilege. He happened to have spotted me one of those days because I took keen interest in what he was doing, and he loved wearing a lot of African wares. So when I got attracted to him, he gave me his bag to carry. And that became my tradition on every single day, to carry his bag for the meetings he was going. And now he would send me when the strikes were being organized. I became a casualty. He never was a casualty. So, well, I suffered. I managed to get a privilege of going to study in West Africa. That was in Nigeria, and that is where I did my first course on leadership. And then I did my second degree at the Kenya Methodist University. And I saw Kenya Methodist University here. So I am a proud product of Kenya Methodist University. Apparently, I was the student leader who went to that institution and didn't like the students' constitution and decided to lead what was called a constitutional review. And I managed to produce the constitution that the institution is using till today. I had a very bad spat, and at one point made one of our vice chancellors, Professor Mugambi, be fired because they felt that we were trying to break the institution into 2 and have Meru and also have Nairobi. My successor was Adede. So I am a product of Kenya Methodist University also, and also an emeritus. I had my third course, that is a postgraduate diploma in business administration at DAMES International, that is based in Singapore. But I'm also proud because I have also had the names of 3 institutions where I am privileged to have children. I have a child in Kenya School of Law, and I saw somebody there. I have a child in ZTech University. I saw the leader somewhere here. And also I have a child in KCA University. So I think by and largely I am privileged and happy to be here with you guys. I am given one of the hardest topics to handle today because like beauty, so is leadership. I want us to understand that the best way that we can benefit from any procedural institutions is 1, understanding, and 2, institutionalization of leadership structures. I would also want us to understand one of the reasons why we would want each one of us to imbibe leadership ability or inculcate the kind of virtues that are required for leadership is to help us further this discourse, because it must not end here. We, being privileged to be the pioneers of this kind of a movement, are basically meant to be the ambassadors of my boss, the Cabinet Secretary, the FCPA John Badi, and the National Treasury in trying to propagate the agenda that the budget-making process is an all-inclusive process. It is a people-driven process. Your leadership is required in trying to perpetuate this agenda and engage the young people across board in ensuring that what is the intention of the government is not only captured and agreed to by the people, but people find it as an all-inclusive process in which they can participate and their voices are heard. And that is why today we've agreed on a rallying call. Bajeti yangu, sauti yangu. Bajeti ya vijana, sauti yetu. So one more time, could I urge each one of us, if you could get out your phone, one more time, take a selfie. Most probably if you don't like your face, I believe that I'm one of the most handsome men that exist. You could most probably take my photo and share it and say, well, this handsome man is here to represent his boss. Could we one more time? Can I see your phones up, each one of us? I would start with my own. And I want to do mine in the reverse. I believe I'm seeing everyone. Wapi wa Sakatonge? Sioni mikono za watu wa Sakatonge. Mna Sakatonge mpaka muonekani kwa picha bwana. Well, thank you so much. I would love to have this session very brief, but as inclusive and engaging as possible. Allow me to begin by saying, why would I want us to develop the leadership skills that would help us to grow as individuals? And according to our program, is that you can apply to grow in your quest as leaders. One of my colleagues was urging me to share a little bit of my history and my past and how I made it to this place, and he felt that could most probably be encouraging. Like I've said before, I was born to a man I do not know until today. I don't know whether he's brown, blue, green, yellow, red. The only thing I know is he is black, because I'm not pointing anything. So my mother later got married in a place known as Kisumu. I was born in Kisii to a gentleman who did not consider me as a blessing, rather as a liability that needed to be eliminated. So I remember being sent away when I was around 7 years old and slept in a cold classroom until I was picked up by my maternal grandmother. So I went to Ongiche Primary School in Kisii. It was called to Semeta Boys High School, but was unable to make it there. I ended up in then very famous, by all standards, it was known as Kuoyo Secondary School. I don't know how many of us have had Kuoyo Secondary School. there is Kwoyo Kotieno, Kwoyo Oyugis Secondary School. That is where I was. But when I was going to high school, my uncle, together with the wife, was taking care of me, passed on. I am a product of a polygamous home. My grandfather was a polygamist. He had 7 wives. Somebody said there he was a wise man. Well, some of us have lacked that wisdom. And in my grandmother's house, she was only privileged to have 2 sons. Both of them were high school teachers. So when this one died, he left me, together with his 6 of his children, that is 7 of us, to his only brother, who had 4. So that made 11 of us, a complete football team with no reserve. So basically, I dropped out of school. Then I was introduced to a lady known as Barbara Reinhardt, who was a representative of the German Volunteer Service. It's Barbara who paid my high school fee. Then I got to a point I had nothing to do. And then later on in life, that family was appreciating me. An aunt asks me over to Nairobi to be taken to college. And I was taken to a wonderful college. I didn't mention the name. Would you want to know which? 44, it was called Top Secret. So Peter gave me an opportunity to be sleeping in his house. And then finally, another one, known as Patrick Mushiri, gave me a permanent residence. If you had been privileged to be there then, you would have seen his father. Our brothers from Central loved doing some houses out of the back of the timber. You know those timber offcuts? So they had like around 6 houses within the shopping center belonging to the father, so he invited me to live in one of them. I began life by trekking from Zimmerman to Kenya National Theatre. And that is where I met destiny. I was cast in one play, the next. Those of you, I think none of you did Kifo Kisimani. Those who did Kifo Kisimani, if you read the back, there's a cast list. You'll see Yogo Osborne, and that is me. And that is how I began life. Then I met a gentleman known as Dr. Pio Muma, who was the head of theater arts at the University of Nairobi. That is the relationship between me and Muma, Catherine. So Dr. Pio Muma decided that I was a brain that needed to be taken to school, so he registered me at the University of Nairobi. And that's how I spent my 6 months there. The rest is history, and I've told you what has brought me this far. But over a period of time, I managed to grow in life, having to struggle and move from one point to another. I know we all have our struggles, but we must also not generally get to one same position. Like I've told my children that if any of them end at where I am, then they have failed because I provided a baseline. So I also expect that each one of us, having the kind of interactions that we have, they become as springboards to take us to the next levels of our lives. I got back to school and became a student leader. Unknown to most of you, today one of the organizations that has been there, I know several splinter groups have been formed. Kenya University Students Organization. When I was serving as the advisor on youth affairs in the office of the Prime Minister, I managed to relaunch the Kenya University Students Organization. I also did not mention to you that I was the first Kenyan to be elected when we met together as student leaders at the University of Dar es Salaam as the regional president for East African Community Organization, famously known as YAKSU. So I am speaking to people that I know, and I have moved from that particular point to be where I am today, and by privilege have been able to serve within the system with 4 different presidents and a prime minister. What do we understand as leadership? The next 10 minutes we're done. Could I have a microphone roving? We are all student leaders, isn't it? We're all student leaders, isn't it? Whether you are an emeritus or not, you're a student leader, isn't it? You are a leader. What would you define as a leader? And like my colleague Millie said, no answer is wrong. Answers were only wrong when we were doing those exams you're marking A or B. Can somebody offer to define for me what a leader is? I can see there's also a hand at the back. You can spot that one. There is another hand here. Oh, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is attracting more attention. Okay, any mic that is closer that is working, you can start with the one that is working. These sound guys don't want you to speak Korean.
Amesimama for long.
Yes, Korean.
Thank you. The point is coming. I'm Ronnie, the Secretary General, Alube University.
Yes.
A leader is a person who takes an initiative to stand at a position of responsibilities, preferring to front the needs of the people, becoming selfless, and trying to ensure that he or she serve others and give them the first priority.
Thank you, Korir. I love two things from that definition. Selflessness and the people. That is people needs. So you're talking about need-centric. Okay? Yes, Ndugu?
I'm Cliff Ravasco. Leadership is the ability to guide and inspire a group of people, probably to achieve a common goal.
Thank you. Well, let me tweak the question a little bit. That gentleman looks like he's coming from a religion where I used to be before, Africa and Israel, Nineveh. Yes?
Okay, with me, as a leader who is representing all the vocational training centers in Nairobi, a leader is someone who knows the ways, goes the ways, and even shows the way.
Knows the way, goes the way, shows the way.
Yes, and basically, my type of leadership is a people-centered leadership.
What if the people don't follow? You know, you go, you show. What if they don't follow?
If they don't follow, that means I did not include them from the start. So it's inclusive leadership where we bring different opinions, then we disagree to agree, then later we come up with one agreement.
Thank you.
That's the leadership.
There's a lady I saw somewhere here. Yes?
Well, thank you. I am Midwinter Nyambura from International Leadership University. And actually, my answer was quite similar, but I'll just expound a little bit. So, a leader, as for me, I believe anyone can hold any position. So you're not a leader because of the position you hold, but you're a leader because you can effectively guide, you can inspire people to be better than who and what they are today, and you can motivate people to do beyond what they think is their capability. That's
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. There's a big difference between leadership and position. Leadership is an innate quality, an innate quality that needs nurture. So there is a very great difference between leadership and position. And now I tweak the question to this gentleman right in front of me because he had raised his hands. What then is the difference between leadership and management? Or are they one and the same?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Agwanda. You've asked of the difference between leadership and management. Leadership, when you are in a leadership position, you are in a position to influence decisions.
I want you to note, it's possible to be in a leadership position and not be a leader.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Being a leader is basically you are in a position to influence decision towards people achieving a specific goal. But then being in management, you are bound to some kind of environment whereby you influence decision based on that particular environment's goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, like I wrote in one of my books, it's called Leader or Dealer. I say leadership is by concepts. Management is by codes. The principles of management are the same globally. Factors of production never change. But leadership is by concepts based on the place that the organization finds itself. So the position of the organization defines the concepts that are developed in steering the organization to what it ought to be. And that is what has distinguished our cabinet secretary as at now. Had it been that there are principles that had been set for the kind of opposition that he finds himself in, then he would not be here where we are. But he develops concepts that are able to, that engenders such kind of discourse and drive, get involvement in the overall shared objectives of the people. Now, one man known as John Adair, one of the renowned leadership gurus globally, John Adair defines a leader as a senior partner one who works with others as a senior partner, number one, to achieve specific objectives. Number two, to build the team. And number three, to meet individual needs. I would go over that definition by John Adair. He defines a leader as one who works with others, not as a boss, but as a senior partner. Number one, to achieve specific objectives. Number two, to build the team. And number three, to meet specific, number one, to build the team, to meet specific objectives, build the team, and to meet individual needs. That is, if any of these three distinct needs are not met, then you failed as a leader. Your responsibility must, number one, be the achievement of specific objectives. What are you working towards achieving? And in the process of achieving the shared objectives, whether as individual, corporately, or nationally, then in the process the people must be built. If the objectives are achieved but there is deterioration in the lives of the people, then you don't qualify as a leader. So the people must be carried along in the process of meeting the objectives. And the other thing, to build the team and also to meet the individual needs. Now, very briefly, how then do you grow your leadership capability? How do you grow your leadership capability? Now, I want to just mention two things. Number one, you need to spell your leadership vision. Like I've always said, it is not what you see today that takes you into tomorrow. It's what you see there that drives you into it. So if you must grow in your leadership capability, if you must rise in your, like I mentioned briefly, I said leadership is an innate quality that needs nurture. Like a seed, leadership requires a conducive environment that supports its growth. Now, a seed is what I would call the component of life that supports continuity or perpetuation of generations. When you kill a seed, you have enacted or pressed the button of demise. So, just in the same way that seeds have to be nurtured and given the ability or the opportunity to sprout, grow and bear fruit, so is leadership ability. I was speaking somewhere on Sunday and I said not every seed that is sowed grows. Some of us who are born and raised in the village, we understand that once you go to the village and you sow your seeds, after a period of time when they begin the process of germination, you go back and look at the holes where there is nothing and you replant. Because not every seed that goes into the ground grows. Now, not everyone with that innate ability of leadership gets the opportunity to have that ability grow, which means you must get the supporting kind of environment, a conducive environment that would nurture the ability that is within you and enable it to grow. So each one of us that are desirous to grow in leadership must therefore now find the environment that would support our own growth. I've realized one thing in our generation as people grow. Allow me to say this. If you realize that revolutions globally have always been led by young people. I don't know whether you know that. Now look at the changes and transformations that have happened globally. They happened through three fronts. One is the civil society. Two is the church. And three is student leadership. I don't know whether I'm correct. If you look at now what has happened in our country, for example, the three arms are basically dead. One, the first one to go to bed with the structures that desired to entertain status quo was the church. Then it was followed by the civil society. And then now we killed student leadership with the Duale Bill. I don't know whether I'm speaking sense. Is that true? And so today we have student leaders, and I say this with all due respect, who hold positions as puppets of the institutions in which we serve. And therefore we cannot enforce any change and transformation in those particular institutions, and will never serve the interest of the people that we lead. And that is why I said, if you must grow as a leader, then you must define your leadership vision. What is it exactly that you want to become and you want to achieve? There is one man known as H.L. Hunt. In his 30s, he was declared bankrupt cotton farmer. In his 50s, he was declared Texas rich oil billionaire. When he was asked by the journalist what his secret was, he said, number one, determine exactly what you want to become. And that is where most of us fail. We have a lot of people wanting so many things without wanting any one thing in particular. And I've said this of the younger generation, that we have a generation that know what they don't want, but don't spell what they want. I don't know whether I'm speaking to someone. Can I say another bad one that you don't like? I mentioned to the team that we had before is that we have, I know we all understand we're in the fourth industrial revolution. That is the information age. And like I've said before, the last time we had that discussion with Millie in the office, she laughed at it. And I said we have the revolution that has succeeded in creating the highest level of buffoonery. Because we have a generation that lives with the world encyclopedia in their hands, but only visit it for information and not for knowledge. Because those two are very different. If we are desirous of growing to become leaders of repute and people that could change and transform the economies in which we find ourselves, then knowledge must be at the core of our growth. And that knowledge would be informed by your desire to clearly spell out that which you want to be. Like H.L. Hunt says, you must determine exactly what you want to become. Number two, you must define the price to pay to get there. And number three, you must resolve to pay the price. Allow me to say this from the onset, that leadership can be very lonely. As you rise in life, your cycle also shrinks. There are certain people who just drop off your life. You'd want to have time for them, but you can't, because responsibility negates their presence. And so leadership would be a very lonely position. You must begin to build the process now. If you don't carefully articulate that which you would want to become, then you may end up a very frustrated fellow in life. I almost said, praise the Lord. Well, another thing that you need to do as I draw to closing is build the relevant skills. Could you clearly spell out your leadership inadequacy and insufficiency? Clearly spell out your leadership inadequacy and insufficiency. There are certain things that are bare minimums for you to become a leader. Bare minimums. Like I've said, institutional and leadership growth requires character. Charisma without character is a recipe for crisis. So you must, as an individual, define your leadership inadequacies. What are the skills that you must build as an individual? For example, if you have to be a leader, then you must not only define your agenda, but you must also carefully, critically, and articulately share the agenda. And that is why we are talking about shared objectives. Now, if people cannot understand what you want to achieve, it would become very hard for them to follow you. So you can't influence their action. So one of the core skills that you must learn as an individual is your communication skills, the ability to communicate effectively. I know one of our budding young leaders, given an opportunity to begin to speak, they can speak very eloquently, very articulately, but at the end of the day, you cannot tell the points that they have said, because communication is not in the vocabularies. Am I speaking to someone? You know, when we were in school, we would study dictionary, so that when we get the debate time, Madam, you remember there, I dignify your dignity, Mr. Speaker, sir. How many of us said, I dignify your dignity, Mr. Speaker, sir? So it's not only me. It was not just my school. So you'd read your dictionary to make sure that the next time you appear on the floor, you must say some words that take people back to the dictionary. Well, so there's a skill or an art of communication, because your communication must be persuasive. Like I have always said, there was one very dangerous man that you would never give an opportunity to sit with, or to sit with you, if you did not want to follow him. That was Raila Odinga. You could hate him from a distance, but if you gave him 2 minutes of your time, when you leave that place, you'd be wondering why you had not followed him all the while, because his communication was very persuasive. So as a leader, you must build those skills. So identify what you'd regard as your leadership deficiencies. What are your leadership inadequacies? Which are the areas of life that you must build or grow? What kind of leadership? Because I talked about your leadership vision. I have a gentleman here who is a sports representative. He is a leader in the sports fraternity. I would not expect him to present himself the way I would in the corporate world. Now, what kind of a leader would you want to be? What is your leadership vision? Once you define that, then you go for the skills relevant to help you achieve that particular dream. Remember the H.L. Hunt story. Define exactly what you want to become. The question I want to ask all of us as we close is, I learned a story in Nigeria when I lived and worked there. They said 20 children don't play together for 20 years. You will one day part ways, but life has a way of bringing us back together. When you meet, would the person you were with as a young person be pleased at what your adult has become? Because 20 children don't play together for 20 years. Let's build the quality